Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the latest news on the way in which Brexit is leading to drug shortages in the NHS as a result of Brexit red tape. More than that, it's been reported that the NHS are having to pay way more, of course, to secure supplies, and the more shortages you have, the more that is costing us. So much for Brexit leading to a stronger NHS. It has never been weaker. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So how many times did I try to explain the process here? The production of pharmaceuticals, like so much else, relied upon European-wide supply chains. It's the only way to efficiently produce things. The vast majority of drugs needed by the NHS require trade with the EU. Now, whether that be directly importing from the EU or needing materials from the EU for manufacture in the UK, because that's something too many people fail to appreciate. Even when something is manufactured in the UK, some of the raw materials or components are often imported. We are not remotely self-sufficient. Raising trade barriers was always going to hit all forms of manufacture and pharmaceuticals very much so. And consider that the Brexit red tape isn't even at its peak yet. The EU applies full customs and standards procedures on their imports, but we only have customs procedures at our end. And we don't even do much checking of that. So it's set to get worse yet. One of the most distressing things I ever watched on the news concerning Brexit was a piece where they were talking to a mother with a child with major medical needs. And she said that she voted for Brexit because of the promise for more money for the NHS. And I knew it was going to mean a weaker, not a stronger NHS. It was one of the cruelest lies. And they knew the promise of NHS funding was a powerful one. That's why it was on the bus. They knew it would attract a lot of people. And they knew it was all lies. You know, I looked at the kid in the news piece and I looked at the mother and I thought, what's that mother going to think when she realises what she's done? Because you inevitably wonder what people must be thinking now. That mother or the others who voted for Brexit because they thought it would mean better medical care for their loved ones. What do you think when they see news like this? The drugs affected of particular note are, antidepressants, ADHD drugs, HRT drugs, antibiotics, medication for high blood pressure. The sort of things that you need a reliable supply of, otherwise people's lives go downhill very quickly. It notes that the reason's simple enough. We now have to deal with loads of extra paperwork and we're suffering staff shortages because of our shiny new immigration system, which even the Tories who implemented it are saying is crap. The report also notes that some of the hubs of the EU supply chains used to be in the UK, but obviously they moved after Brexit. The reason was, of course, because trade barriers make supply chains less efficient. So we've largely been cut out of those supply chains. The article made another point that I tried to make several years ago. The NHS can't just stockpile to avoid these problems either, because many of the drugs have a short lifespan. You need an efficient supply chain to keep the supplies coming. You remember when that idiot, Chris Failing, was told to arrange a facility in Belgium and to get ferries, to keep the stocks rolling in? Because he was such an idiot, he used a company which didn't have any ferries or experience of running ferries to hire ferries from. We didn't get them, of course. But then they just stopped. I mean, what it showed at the time is it showed that the government knew that this was going to be a major problem. They knew what raising these trade barriers would mean for supplies of NHS drugs. They knew, and they did it anyway. And what's more, when their ferry scheme fell down because they put an idiot in charge of it, they didn't bother to either implement the same plan with a more competent minister or work on a different way of ensuring supplies. They just left it. They didn't do anything. And now here we are. And bear in mind, this isn't the problem just emerging now. There's been a problem ever since we left the single market and customs union. There have been reports of Brexit-related shortages for nearly 3 years. It's just that you don't often see it reported in the mainstream media like this. So when it is, the situation is getting really bad. The article also cites someone from Community Pharmacy England saying that, absolutely Brexit is a major problem here, but there are other factors as well. The war in Ukraine, manufacturing problems overseas. Now there are a couple of things I will say to this. First, it's always worth pointing out We never say all of these problems are fully down to Brexit. Brexiteers try and claim that we're always just blaming everything on Brexit. It's not true. Of course, other international changes have an impact. It's true that there are shortages of drugs in EU countries, for example. Not as many as in the UK, I'll go over that in a moment. But still, there are EU countries who have issues as well. Just to highlight the problem, the report described a system of concessions for drug shortages. So when there are shortages, of course, often the price goes up if you want to secure your own supplies. And because shortages happen, with or without Brexit, the government allows the NHS to pay over the odds for drugs where there are shortages developing, for whatever reason. Now, here's the difference Brexit makes. Before Brexit, the report noted that this system covered about 20 a month. The government would allow the NHS to pay over the odds for about 20 different types of drugs a month. That was the sort of shortage we used to get. Then it sort of went up to about 100 a month. And the report says since last summer, it's nearer 150 a month. Scale's important. Yes, we had shortages before Brexit. Yes, continuing EU members have shortages. But the sheer number of shortages in Brexit Britain has exploded out of all comparison. That is the difference people need to appreciate. We're not saying we've got drug shortages in the UK because of Brexit. France has drug shortages. Ireland has drug shortages. Poland has drug shortages. The UK had drug shortages before Brexit. It's that the UK now has over 7 times the shortages and potentially still rising. Like I say, the full Brexit trade barriers are not yet in place yet. The second point it's worth focusing on Brexit is because this was a decision. Like, you could argue that our failure to, led to the invasion of Ukraine because we didn't deal with it properly in 2014 when it would have been easy. But that wasn't a deliberate decision, just careless. As for other manufacturing issues, well, we didn't decide to create those problems. But we did decide to leave the EU under almost the harshest terms possible. We did decide to raise trade barriers with our most important market. We chose to do that. And we chose to do it knowing exactly what would happen, because the government knew what would happen. The Tories knew what would happen. Because they tried to put something in place, then gave it to an idiot and then didn't put it in place. But they tried to. They knew what was going to happen. We can't help the other factors, but we chose this one. We decided this one entirely ourselves, nothing to do with anywhere else around the world. And I have to say, it's really very careless of the Tories from a strategic point of view. There's a lot of Brexit damage that they can absolutely get away with. Even people losing their jobs can be told, oh, no, it's nothing to do with Brexit. But didn't they say that, didn't our company say they're going bust because of Brexit? Oh, yeah, but they're just coming up with excuses. They're just Remainers, And some will believe them. But there are 2 really visible signs that the Tories should have done better in covering up. Travel and the NHS. The delays we get at Dover, for example, when holiday traffic ramps up. You're talking about large groups of voters. A lot of those people are part of the major voting blocks, seeing the major inconvenience of Brexit in a way that is hard for all but the most blinkered to identify with Brexit. And the NHS. That is the most valued British institution according to polls of UK citizens. We're heading into another record bad winter for our NHS. Things like this are being noticed. People, despite what the Tories and the Brexiteers say now, a lot of people did vote for Brexit because of that NHS promise. And they knew that because it was their major selling point. It was on the bus, right? They knew that. And people remember that that's what they voted for. Not all of them, but a good chunk of them. And they knew that. And they know that the NHS has actually got worse. And it's all right you saying excuses and excuses and excuses. They were told that the NHS would be better, and it isn't. It's worse. Things like that are noticed. The Tories must have been mad not to have prioritised at least some way of ensuring supplies of pharmaceuticals. Absolutely mad. And it's not like it's done now and there's nothing which can improve the situation. When Labour in government, I keep saying, they're going to show that there are things that can be improved. We can't get back to where we were without full integration, but it's not binary either. And Labour would do well to shout the improvements they make from the rooftops as they happen. The Tories must be insane to have let it get this bad. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.